Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome back to Yesterday's Tea, where the gossip is antique and the tea is timeless. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Liz.
And today we are finally getting into the life and times of Louis XV, the beloved to the Indulgent King of France. So Louis XV had a 59-year reign from 1715 to 1744. It was the second longest reign in the French history after his great-grandfather and his immediate predecessor, the former episodes, Louis XIV. So over the next several episodes, we are going to get into all the political chaos that was under Louis XV.
All the scandals.
Oh, dude, there's so much juicy tea.
There is.
And so that brings us to whatever you got.
All right. First, as we have before, we got to, we need to set the stage, right?
Yep.
So we're going to start by mentioning that the Second 100 Years' War, the second one,
Yeah.
we traded across Europe from, I've got here 1689
Yep.
to 1815.
15.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's during Louis XV's entire reign.
Most of Louis XIV as well.
Most of Louis XIV as well, yeah. So it precedes him and it goes
well
beyond
into
him.
Napoleon Bonaparte era.
Yeah. Now, at the root of that conflict are two rivalries, Britain and France, and then also Protestantism and Catholicism.
Yep.
And there's a lot of zealotry and extremism happening on both sides of this. The wars are fueled by religious fervor, dynastic distrust, which is an ongoing theme in this period. In the early phases of the war, the focus shifted to who would own all the wealth and have complete domination over the globe. These were attempts at total world dominance, and that, I think, I really hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
this was a big war that was really meant to keep powers in check. Like most of this 100-year war, the War of the Quadruple Alliance that we're going to get into, all of this was about conquering and keeping the continent within the countries that are there.
That were there, because, of course, the map has indeed changed since then. And this is the story, when we talk about World War I and World War II, the roots of those conflicts very much lie in this, going all the way back to the 1400s and the 1300s. There is even further back than we're doing for this particular season.
Yeah.
It's a very old conflict in a way. So England, their contribution to this conflict, they build a massive navy. They're working to develop a modern central banking system with credit, actually.
Yeah.
And the French, at the same time, are attempting to maintain a large ground army. And while they did expand their naval forces, they ultimately just... They spent so much money on the military, trying to keep up with England in the Navy, and then also keeping this massive ground army to keep control of Europe in general, which is really what they're trying to do here. So they actually also, they stretched themselves very thin financially that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, Louis had inherited the perpetual 100-year war. Which, honestly, I think that's quite more than 100 years, if we actually did the math right. 16 whatever to 1815, that's well over 100 years.
Right.
So he inherited that, and his response to, like, England doing their thing was he entered a navy arms race against them. He built up his armada, and then he also did the horrible aspect of trying to keep a ground army sustained, and we're going to address that in the Quadruple Alliance of how horrible that failed, supporting a ground army.
Right.
But their main goal, besides fighting proxy wars in North American French colonies, was to prevent Great Britain from becoming a thallocracy, I think is how it's pronounced.
Thallocracy? I wasn't sure either.
I had initially looked it up and then I forgot to write it down. Yeah. But that was basically what that is a sea-bearing dominant empire, which England really was at that time becoming.
Honestly, the British Navy had centuries of being, the world class in navies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's legendary, truly, and it gets its start kind of right here.
Right. So England attempted to prevent France from conquering all of Europe, which was what France's initial ground army was about. And so the conflict that had actually broke the kingdom financially, like, there were many conflicts that broke the kingdom financially, and France really could not bear the burden of the debt. I think at one point, we're about to talk about it somewhere here, that the debt ends up being, like, exponentially crazy amount of sum of money back then. But the taxes at this time, the poverty for the common man was so extraordinary. But on top of that, we have climate, and the climate is what turned the national debt into a death sentence for the French people.
Oh yeah. And so there is no way, I love this about this story. So there's so many ways. When we said, we're going to cover the French Revolution, there's reasons why we went back this far already. Because there's so many things that caused the French Revolution. And absolutely one of the biggest villains in this story was just the weather. The weather did such a number on these people. So, in 1709, they had Le Grand Devere.
Something like that.
Le Grand Devere. Or the Great Winter. Now, that struck the entire European continent.
That was a bad storm.
Right. Now, of course, that's 1709, so that predates the birth of Louis XV himself.
Yeah, this was
the consequences were really so catastrophic that the shadow of 1709 follows Louis all the way through his reign, really. Yeah. The temperatures dropped so cold that the seawater in the Atlantic froze.
Oh yeah.
And the wine froze solid in its bottles, and in the caskets
as well.
You put alcohol in the freezer and it doesn't freeze. So this is really an extraordinarily cold. Right. And the caskets are kept underground typically. Like, it is extraordinarily cold.
That says how deep the frost level got, too, because you are right. Wine casks are mostly kept underground. Like,
underground, they're wood. It should be, it temperature regulates itself for the largest part. Yeah. So this is an amazing level of cold. It was even rumored that the king's soup... Oh, I love this
rumor.
Yeah. The rumor is that the king's soup had ice crystals forming on the edges of his bowl by the time it got from the kitchen to his table. Like, it would have already had ice crystals around the edge of the bowl.
Yeah.
So, wow. That is super cold.
Insane.
That freeze killed millions of olive trees and grapevines.
And every other type of crop.
Yeah. But olive trees and grapevines in particular, that completely destroyed the agricultural economy because their wine and olive oil was a major export of the time. So when the olive trees and the grapevines, they kind of went first.
Yeah.
And that was an immediate, punch to the French economy.
The frost had got down to the roots.
Right. And that created a deep-seated generational trauma that we're going to see play out basically from this point forward in the people about starvation and, of course, the food riots, the bread riots that take place long before the revolution. They really began much earlier than that. Yeah.
And then you still have one more.
Yep. Okay. So then we do want to cover here the late Maunder minimum, which is 1715. Now this is where...
This is the year he becomes king.
Yes, this is the year he becomes king. It's just the absolute worst. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've already covered 1709. That was really bad. And then bam, 1715. 4 years later. No, 6 years later.
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. So, 1715 again saw intense global cooling. That was caused by the tail end of the Maunder minimum, a period in which there was brutally low sunspot activity. Didn't realize that sunspot activity was necessary for the warming of the Earth, but apparently very low sunspot activity, and that helped create this really bitter cold. And there was a volcanic eruption in Hokkaido. We're actually going to get to that in a couple of more cards here. But that was followed by a legendary heat wave and a drought in 1719. So the climate goes from brutally cold to horrendous heat wave drought conditions in 1719. So again, 4 years, and it just shifts completely in the other direction.
Right.
And that heat wave was so relentlessly hot and dry that the rivers slowed to an absolute crawl. Fields turned to total dust. There's no water getting anywhere.
Mill stop.
Urban fires break out everywhere.
Oh,
the fire
think about the urban fires from the drought.
Yeah. Decimated villages, neighborhoods, entire quarters of cities.
Dang.
And that wasn't just in France. This is happening across the European continent. Each one of these is really a blow to the local economy and the way of life, not to mention the loss of life and the fallout, all the economic and personal and grief fallout from that. So remember, when people are losing their family members all that time like this, they are being repeatedly traumatized. And I don't think when we tell the history, we put quite enough emphasis on how habitually traumatized the common man was by this point.
Oh, right.
And this is years before the revolution. This is almost 100 years before the revolution, right? So, like 80 years. So, as clean water vanished, the shortages brought massive spikes in heat strokes and waterborne illnesses, because a lot of the water that was left was standing, stagnant, diseased, right? And everybody was having to use the same source. And so all these waterborne illnesses spread like wildfire because, of course, everybody had to clamor around these remaining water sources.
Right.
And then there's this brief reprieve in the summers of 1720 and 1722. Or through 1723. So 1720, 1721, 1722. It tapers off a little bit. A little bit. Yeah. It's not great. But the trend ends abruptly in 1723. There's this a second brutal drought, big heat wave. It tears through the countryside. It drops the Seine River to historical lows. I mean, it's just a muddy crawl at this point. Now, the Seine River was necessary for the economic health of France in that goods were transported in boats down the Seine River. So, that was a major highway for commerce. Right.
Yeah.
And it dries up to such an extent that you can no longer transport a crossboat.
So not only can you not transport, then the milk production stops, which would cause a famine that
exactly
way.
Exactly so. And so those two things bounce off of each other. Yep. And then in 1725, the climate swings violently back in the opposite direction. Relentless rain falls.
Torrential flooding.
Absolutely torrential flooding.
It was a year without sunshine, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Summer without sunshine, something like that.
Yeah, they called it the summer without sunshine. And, of course, the topsoil had previously been turned to dust. Now it's getting hit with these torrential rains. They went on for so long, they completely stripped the topsoil.
So all the good dirt's gone.
All good. Well, and the dirt wasn't even good
to begin with.
But now we've stripped the topsoil with this absolutely torrential flooding again in 1725. So any crops that had been growing rotted actually right on the stalk. They never got to harvest because that rain drowned what plants they had been able to get going through the drought, which was already killing things left and right. And that includes livestock. So when you lose your grain supply, you also begin to lose your livestock at this level.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And so, with all of that being said, Louis was actually a really small boy when he actually ascended to the throne. He ascended in 1715, and he was 5 years old when he became the new king. And he was governed by the Duke of Orleans, which is his great uncle, Felipe. But in 1723, that is when young Louis officially reached the age of majority, where also Felipe had passed away. We're about to get into the gossip that was Felipe. Oh my god.
There's so much there, so we didn't put it in this episode.
Yeah.
That will be in next week's episode, yes.
So when he stepped into absolute monarchy, he had inherited a kingdom that was immediately pushed to the brink. With that rain that they had experienced in 1725, that turned the farmlands into stagnant swamps. It caused the wheat to rot on the stalk. That caused national bread shortages. It gripped the nation. And then also, out of all of that, there was massive rumors that spread like wildfire throughout the capital city that the wealthy elite were actually hoarding grain to intentionally starve the poor and create an artificial famine. Right. It was a psychological terror point. The people were terrified. It was generational terror and trauma. This ends up being known as the famine plot of July of 1725, and we're totally going to get into this much more in depth. Yeah. But basically what sums up is this becomes a bread riot in Paris where thousands of people gather and lives are massively lost as well. But then the crown ends up, instead of doing what the crown should have done, they end up panicking, and they my personal opinion, they do the right thing on this one. They cap the bread price, so then they cannot charge an X over that amount, and which was causing the big problem with the bread famine, is with the shortages, prices were skyrocketing. Right. So when the king
and there was rampant price gouging.
Oh yeah.
From merchants. So that was absolutely the merchant class back then also knew how to take advantage of a perceived shortage.
They were absolutely doing that. And in response to the riots, besides capping the bread cost, which was the one good thing in my opinion, he deployed his guards. And that's where the massive lives were lost. But like I said, we will get into that. And instead of doing anything about trying to figure out what to do about the grain and the farmland and try to actually deal with the crisis, he just ordered emergency imports to come into France from the farmlands that were already starving. So, yeah, that kind of starved off the population. And So that kind of...
And at the same time that the weather is just doing a tap dance on whatever grain is left available.
Oh, yeah. So throughout the late 1720s and the early 1730s, the climate had offered zero peace to the people. It offered fall springs, which I think we're all familiar with, where we get that super beautiful February, where it's all warm and the flowers are blooming. And then all of a sudden, like, April comes and it's snowing again.
Right.
And that's what was going on. Apparently...
March is often just so much colder than February.
It really is. And then April was getting hit by polar vortexes. I actually didn't even know polar vortexes were a thing until I experienced one in Minneapolis, where I experienced negative 60 wind chill. So, dude, I have stories for that one. Frozen, my snot broke off. Like, if I stood out there any longer, it was like little ice drippings where, like, in the cartoons where they break them off and play with them like they're chopsticks? Totally happening. My eyes were frozen shut. I lost a layer of skin around my mouth because my scarf fabric had frozen to my lips because of my breath. Oh, God, yeah. It was bad. So I could only imagine what they were going through without what I had in the modern day. I had Columbia winter boots. I had a negative 10-degree coat. I had the top-of-the-line Minnesota gear.
Right.
And
these are medieval...
And these are medieval peasants.
Yep.
Who were going through these extreme chills. Now, I know negative 60 in North America. We don't actually have evidence of what the actual temperatures were then, because there was actually no record of recording temperatures back then. But through historic weather patterns, we are able to know.
And we know things like it was so cold that wine froze in the casket.
Yeah, there's
there's ranges where we do know that it had to be at least this cold. So we're not entirely unaware, and we know that it was literally record-breaking, yeah.
So then in 1939...
1739?
Oh my god, I said 1939. Sorry, I got talking present day.
That's a whole different story.
That's a whole different era. 1939. Oh boy.
Yeah, we will cover that period.
Anyway, 1739. Hurricane force windstorm. I mean, it's like a hurricane on land. Pretty much struck through all of Europe, but hit France, since we're talking about France particularly, devastated homes, wiped out communities, flattened whatever crops had barely survived through the harsh winters and springs. Like,
these guys cannot catch a break.
They cannot catch a break with what's going on with this weather, on top of starvation, disease. And so, after this, they experienced the worst, coldest winter since 1710. And this was actually documented as the worst winter in the last 600 years of European history.
Yeah. And I that was fun. So I do think that it dealing with this, coping with this, can make a lot of people superstitious.
Absolutely.
Like, even very well-reasoned people, at some point, there's this level at which you're like, well, that's it. God hates us. And so part of, I think, understanding, too, the Enlightenment and the push towards reason,
right,
is an attempt to address the rampant fear and predilection towards superstition that these kind of events absolutely engendered in the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it, to some people, it very much must have looked like magic. And here's why. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, like, and absolutely, like, even in all of that panic and chaos, like, why wouldn't you turn to God? Like, your king is supposed to be the divine representation of God on planet.
And Louis XV seems cursed from the get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the people are absolutely going to take that as a sign.
And so, yeah, he was a very young, sick king to begin with in the early years. So, like, and we're going to get into all that.
And from his birth to his kingship, it was marked by these horrendous, catastrophic weather events and storms. So he kind of... And he was never supposed to be king.
Never.
So he's seen from the people with a certain level of superstition, even though they did try for a time to very hard to love him. And we will also get into that in the upcoming episodes. Now, this is interesting. We're just adding this for context. It's not so much about France. It's about Hokkaido, Nippon, which you may know as Japan. So that's 12,000 miles away. Mount Tarumae.
Yes.
Tamurai. Sorry. I so apologize.
I also had my Korean-speaking boyfriend translate Japanese. So,
well, I actually do speak a little Japanese. I should have done better on that on the first round, but it always twists my tongue. And then we're going from the French to the Japanese. And
like I said, I asked Chris. I
didn't know I was going to have to become
Korean-speaking boyfriend. He doesn't speak Japanese.
And I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to have to learn linguistics in order
to learn history, I didn't expect
clearly, okay, but it is important. So, Hokkaido, which is an island near Nippon. I'm sorry, it is not actually, Nippon is the island that we know as Japan. Today, in modern time, the island that is Hokkaido is considered by some and in certain international legal circles to be part of Japan. And it's a complicated story. If you don't know it, you should look it up.
Oh, you just sent me down a rabbit hole. I don't actually know it. I just... Volcano. Give info. Because it weather.
yeah, so that's a story. It's a story.
Oh, boy.
And now, it's widely believed today that eruption is what created the extreme weather in Europe. Let's see here. The winter of 1739 to 1740 remains, which is the one we talked about. That is considered to this day to be the coldest winter
600 years
in European history that we've been able to identify in 600 years. So it was basically that cold. It's sometimes also referred to as the mini ice age, because the last time it got that cold in Europe was during the glacial maximum.
Well, this whole period we're talking about is actually known throughout history. Like, you can actually Google it as the Little Ice Age, and it will tell you about the 18th century, which is this.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the Little Ice Age, and the last time it had gotten anywhere near that cold in Europe was during the previous glacial maximum, which we call the Ice Age. Yeah.
Mammoth.
What?
Mammoths!
Right, we're talking Doggerland and, prehistoric
Neanderthals.
times. Yep. Okay, so, let's see. Plummeted to well below 0 degrees for months. The Seine River, which had been a dried up muddy mess just a little while ago, was filled again and now frozen so solid that the people
caravans could migrate massive wagon
They still couldn't
trains.
use boats on it, but now they were putting whole wagon trains, caravans across it like a straight up highway.
And once again, frozen means the mills cannot produce. Typically, European
you need that water to be running.
Doesn't freeze like this, as far as I'm aware.
So the mills have stopped. Not that the grain was good, but the mills have also stopped. And the fishing is also kaput because the Atlantic Ocean is actually frozen at this time.
Yeah, again.
Which is again, this is salinated water. Which
how does the ocean freeze? Like I could not imagine how cold that actually is.
Yeah. This is a killer winter.
Google.
All right. Let's see. Now that freeze is not just killing domestic crops. It's important to notice it's also doing damage to the forests, the general ecology of Europe, right? It's doing damage to meadows and plains and forests and the entire ecology as a whole. It's affecting hunting. It's affecting grass. And in fact, isn't it during this period that they wind up eating grass for a time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because nothing is growing. They're eating shrub. And then... Okay, what was the temp?
Negative 1.8 degrees Celsius or 28.8 degrees Fahrenheit is when it typically begins freezing.
28 or negative 28?
Just 28.
28.
Negative 1.8 degrees Celsius. My phone, for some reason, thinks I need everything in Celsius because of my accounting course when I was learning conversions.
It's good to learn Celsius, though. Europe uses it.
The math equation for conversion is actually really easy, but let's not talk math on history.
Okay. Okay, so getting back to this. So then it warms up again, and this creates another wave of massive flooding. That washes away more levels of topsoil. Well, it washed away the topsoil.
Again.
Topples bridges. Carried disease with it. This wasn't good water. So the disease is now essentially just flowing down across Europe and picking up new diseases as it goes, because that's how that works.
Yeah.
We're going to at some point cover the Papal States, and around this time, disease is just...
Oh, I can't wait to get into
it's a big problem,
fire.
yeah. And then France at this point loses somewhere between 30 to 50% of its entire population.
This is a devastating winter. Like, this is a devastating period in French history.
It's just killing people left and right. This is a killing winter. Starvation, disease, frigid cold. Louis, at the point that I'm talking here, he's 30 years old, and his reign has just been absolutely devastated by this climate. Non-stop climate events, which frankly preceded him, but also continued to wreck his, particularly his early career, and was seen very superstitiously for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The weather was a sign, it was an omen of God for many of the events that was like Louis' birth, like, everything that brought Louis into the throne himself was seen as a cursed omen from God.
Yeah. Everything.
Oh, yeah.
From the fact that, he wasn't even one of the direct descendants of Louis the... Well, he was a direct descendant, but he was never supposed to be.
He was so far... He was the great-great-grandson of the fourth son... Of like, the third son who was supposed to become king.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like fifth in line. He had...
There were so many people who should have been king before him, and they all died.
Yeah, which we're about to get into.
We're about to jump right on in.
Finish up with what you got still.
Okay, so 1741. So immediately following the Great Freeze, catastrophic drought killed all the remaining crops. So again, freeze, drought.
Polar vortex, early spring, fall spring.
Yep. Warm weather in the late winter. Yep, another fall spring. And that further exacerbated, of course, the social instability. And again, this is not relegated to France. This is now happening across the whole continent.
This is really not just France. This is the entire European continent.
Bread prices triple. And we now suspect that this may have been an El Nino event, although the tech at the time wasn't around to exactly confirm that. But we do have evidence that this may have been a particularly harsh El Nino event.
By the Meteorologist Society, where they're able to use scientific data of what they have now and pattern recognition, they do believe it's an El Nino.
So, we wanted to set that weather stage just to talk about, an overview, what is going to be happening throughout the stages of Louis' life. So, we're going to back up a little bit. That's the environment that Louis steps onto the stage at 5 years old.
Yeah. That is
at 17, 15. So, just the beginning. Like, we started this saga in 1709, but the second event starts in 1715.
Right.
1709 is the year he's born, right?
No.
No.
He's born in 1710.
1710. Okay, so, but he's born right after this begins.
Uh-huh.
And then he steps onto the stage, 1715, there's another weather event. He's just 5 years old. He is just 5 years old.
So...
And it's all you for a minute here.
So, he was born in Versailles on February 15th of 1710. So, as we've said, young Louis was never expected to be king. He was actually simply known as Louis de France, Duke of Anjou. And that was just before surnames even really existed for royalty. He was the great-great-grandson of the king, so he wasn't Prince of Blood or anything of that nature. He was the youngest of the 3 children or 4 children 3,
I think. He had 2 older brothers.
Two older brothers of Louis, Duke of Burgundy, which is Louis the XIV's biological grandson. And his lively, beloved mother, Princess Marie Adelaide of Savoy, was actually Louis XIV's favorite granddaughter-in-law. She was the belle of his ball. She was the apple of his eye. He absolutely just adored the princess. So this grandson's family of Louis XIV was rather special. Anyways,
yeah, they were fond.
He's also he was the son of the Duke of the Grand Dauphin. Sorry.
Oh, right.
He's
the son of the Grand
Dauphin. So that also makes him very special. Anyways, not only is his mother absolutely the greatest, he is the grandson of the next in line.
Right.
So
Louis is and both of his brothers are named Louis.
Oh, so yeah, hang on. You're getting way ahead of us.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
You're getting way ahead of me. So, Louis XIV, his son, the Grand Dauphin, dies of smallpox in April 14, 1711 at 49. This is the beginning of catastrophe for Louis XIV's dynasty. And we kind of briefly talked about it in the ending of Louis XIV's episodes. But when smallpox and measles hit the court, I was going to say hit the floor, hit the court, that it devastates everybody, and it hits the Bourbon dynasty hard. The first to die of the grandchildren was Princess Marie Adelaide, and she died, I believe, in the spring of 1712. I'm pretty sure it was sometime around February. And then just a few days later, within the week, followed her husband, the Duke of Burgundy, the grandson. So now we have lost the heir, the second in line, and so there goes pretty much all the dynasty. And he died from measles, of course, which is what his beloved wife, Princess Marie Adelaide, died of, as well as bloodletting. Bloodletting was the curse of the dynasty, or at least, like, the worst medication for any disease, really. But when Princess Marie and Louis, Duke of Burgundy, died, that left 2-year-old Louis an orphan. He had 2 older brothers, as we were mentioning, also both named Louis, and both held the title Duke of Brittany. They were supposed to be third in line. His first brother, the eldest of the Louis, he died pretty much right away, within a couple of days of being born, of convulsions. Sadly, that just, yeah. It happens with newborns of that era. And then second Louis was born in 1707. He held a pretty good life for the short years that he did have before he ended up with measles. He did end up taking the title of his brother, Duke of Brittany. He ended up receiving the title Grand Dauphin for a very brief period. He only had that title for maybe a year or two before he passed away on March 8th of 1712 from the doctors bleeding the poor child. 5 years old, and just that is so much blood that they bled out of him. Like, it really is.
It's so they thought the fever lived in the blood. They're using Greek a Greek idea of humors and balancing humors to come up with this idea that if you just bled enough of the fever out of the blood, that you cure the person, and it just did not work, of course.
I think there is an episode early in Louis XV that I actually go in depth about the humors.
I think
there is. So now we get to the third child of the Duke of Burgundy and Princess Marie Adelaide, Louis XV himself. Now, this poor baby at 2 years old was also struck with the same virus that killed everybody in his family.
Measles.
Of course.
This is measles. This is what measles will do to people.
This is why we have a vaccination for it now. So the only way he survived was due to his governess. A courageous woman. This woman stood up to the doctor. She barricaded herself with this baby.
In her quarters.
Oh, yeah. Forbid anyone to enter that room. And she nursed this toddler to full health. Saved Louis XV's life.
By refusing to let the doctor's bloodlet him.
Yeah. Don't come near that child.
Yep.
It was great. Her name was Charlotte Eleanor Madeleine de la Moth Hondecont, Duchess of Ventadour, that he ended up referring to her fondly as Maman Ventadour because she became a surrogate mom to him. She not only was there when his mom died for him, she was there to save his life. She taught him. She raised him.
He was just 2 years old. She raised him, essentially.
She was his mom.
Yeah.
And for the rest of his life, and for the rest of her life, that was Mama. And she had a royal place in court up until her sad passing. Which we will get into that at a later episode.
I did want to mention that one of the reasons that his father died is because he did not leave Adelaide's side.
No, he
during her entire sickness.
He stayed by her side.
He stayed by her side from beginning to end. That's how he got it, and that's why he died. I remember reading it. I don't remember if I managed to put it in the notes, but his devotion.
He loved her. He did not leave her side. He was her personal nurse throughout her death.
Right, and we always think of these royal families as being, filled with scandals, and certainly many of them were, but you also see a lot of legitimate true love and genuine devotion, and he was a good example of that.
Yeah.
So.
He would have been a good king.
Now, just to back it up a second, when Louis XIV was Sun King and absolute monarch of France, and then he passes away September 1st, 1715. That leaves an orphaned 5-year-old Louis XVI, or 15, excuse me, who is now Grand Dauphin.
Yep.
And also the sole survivor of the Bourbon line. He's all that's left. He's 5 years old, and he's all that's left.
Except the Spanish bourbon.
Except the Spanish bourbons.
Dun, dun.
Oh, yeah, and they're
coming up.
They're coming up. It's a whole thing. It's an amazing story. Oh, the scandal. I can't wait. I
can't wait. I'm so excited.
Cannot wait. Okay. So, honest, I included this. I didn't go to verify the absolute truth of it, but there's a version. I did fact check it a little bit, and it said, yeah, this is basically true. I'm sure the quotation could use some
I mean, you also
refinement. I'm translating
English, right. And he speaks French.
And I think it kind of modernized it for me too. Probably. A little bit. So Louis on his deathbed called young Louis into him and tries to give him some advice. The problem here is that Louis XV is 5 years old. 5 years old. He has
no idea what's going on.
But he's reportedly said to him, my child, you are going to be a great king. Do not imitate me in the taste that I have had for building, or in that I have had for war. Try, on the contrary, to be at peace with your neighbors. And then he goes on to express regret, saying that he was unhappy to have not been able to relieve his subjects from the heavy taxations, and urged his heir to take counsel and avoid his mistakes. So, we brought this up before. The taxation system was heavy in Louis XIV's time. It gets worse, it gets heavier. Yeah. But the kings were not unaware of this.
Right.
And every time they did attempt to address it,
the nobility would
nobles
step in.
and the nobility would create these sort of horrendous quagmires where it was impossible for the king to effectively do this.
We got tea on that.
We do have tea on that. Now, the kings can be blamed for their lavish lifestyles, but also they were sort of expected to.
Yeah.
It's not like they were expected to themselves show a ton of austerity. In fact, quite the opposite. Louis, of course, was simply too young to understand what his grandfather was telling him. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Louis XIV, the Sun King, had spent an absolute fortune. And when he leaves the country to his great-grandson, it's in a lot of debt.
Oh, he bankrupts the coffers.
Absolutely. He inherited... Okay, so the national debt when Louis XIV passed away was approximately 2.4 billion livres. Now, livre? So the... or it could just be leave. Oh, I think it's leaf. Leaf. Okay. So here's the problem. It is very difficult, actually, to translate our modern currency
into the gold value.
Into the value of that currency, or to translate the economic flow correctly, accurately. Because the nature of manufacturing and currency has changed so drastically since this happened that you don't get a good one-to-one comparison.
There is no good
There is no good one-to-one comparison. I ran the numbers quite a bit just to make sure that I could be as accurate here as possible.
I tried to run the numbers as accurately too.
But it's about 36 to 56 billion US dollars today. Now that is quite a range, but again, this is because it's
gold
so
value,
difficult.
The silver value,
and
other
the types of
metal,
manufacturing.
Gemstones.
Also, what has value today?
Versus what didn't.
Furs were a different industry at the time. For example, barley was a different industry at the time.
Right.
And that's foundational stuff, right?
Yeah.
In the meantime, the annual revenue for France in total is only about 69 million livres, meaning the debt is roughly 36 times greater than the average revenue.
Yeah.
36 times greater. So France is
never gonna make it back up.
Never. France is economically crippled. It's entirely crippled, and Louis XV, I'm not going to have a lot of good to say about this kid, but boy, he was, like his successor, set up to fail.
Oh, so
day
bad.
one. Day one. So, as we mentioned, he gets his regent, Philippe d'Orléans. He's remembered primarily for his debauchery. He's a scoundrel. He's gross. He's corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have a lot of tea coming out next week. And this is pretty much
Oh.
the outro here, I think,
Oh,
right?
yay, we done. So, we
Hold
want
on. What, not quite. I was
Oh.
just giving you a heads up. Okay, so coming up next week, Louis the 14th.
15th?
No, let me finish this
Oh,
sentence.
okay.
Louis the 14th appointed a council
Oh,
right away to attempt to keep Philippe from taking absolute
Absolute power.
control over the absolute monarchy system that Louis the 14th had himself set up, right? And of course, the moment he dies, things don't go as planned. That is going to be where we start our tea next week.
2 weeks from now.
That's right, 2 weeks from now. Go right ahead. I think we have some shout-outs we would love to give this week.
Shout-outs. We have a big shout-out to our super fans, Jamie and Megan Williams in Chico, California.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your gifts. We really appreciate them. And we hope you enjoyed this episode.
You'll be able to find the results of that on our Patreon in the next couple of weeks. I'm getting that done.
We are working on figuring out the Patreon. We'd also like to give a big shout out to our local dispensary, Green Health, off of Highway 99 here in Eugene, Oregon.
Thank you guys so much, as always.
We love you. Thank you for the love and support as well. And I think that is it for our actual shout outs.
Yeah. So join us next week. We are going to discuss the Regency specifically.
And get into the Salamier conspiracy.
Right.
I can't wait.
Right? And there is so much tea. That does give us our weather overview actually for quite a while. So we won't be returning to the weather as a subject until about 1750, right? But yeah, we are looking forward to getting into all the juicy political gossip, and it is so good. It is so good.
So good.
Yeah. So, thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate your time. Live long and prosper. Oh, wait.
What?
I forgot something.
What'd you forget?
We forgot something.
What did we forget?
Don't forget to like,
Subscribe,
and
comment.
hit that little dingy bell button so you never miss your invitation.
Mwah.
Mwah.
Bye.